Okay.
Second.
Okay. Questions, comments? Looks good to me too. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, approved. There you go, Jeremy. All right, public participation, we don't have any. So Brendan, you want to start in your director's report?
Sure, thank you. First thing I'd like to do is welcome our minute taker back, Julie. Julie was out. For those of you who might not have known, she had a new addition to her family. She has a new son who is now 3 months old, right? Sean. So we just wanted to say quick congratulations and acknowledge that you're back, and thank you. And start taking on those minutes for us. So very much appreciated, and congratulations. So, all right. We did just meet a few weeks ago before the holidays. I hope everyone had a good holiday, and their new year is off to a good start, all 6 days into it. But first, just give a quick update with some maintenance information. With the recent winter, or warmer temperatures, melting snow, our maintenance team has continued to work on park and school cleanups that they didn't get to before we had that snow, and then stayed on the ground for a while. So there are a couple parks left to clean up, and we'll get them as the weather allows. They've also started the post-holiday cleanup, removing decorations from the common, wreaths from the town buildings, and then they'll begin taking down the lights. Do want to say that received just a lot of compliments on the lights this year. Want to publicly thank our maintenance team for the job they did. I receive even as recently as last week, someone said, "Hey, did we have more lights out there this year?" I said, "We did get some more lights, but I think, just the whole process went really well this year. They had time to do it, the weather cooperated, so, and the guys did a fine job, so I want to recognize them for that. So they will be getting the lights next. And they've also taken advantage of the downtime and programming up at the Visco building, and they gave the Visco building a good cleaning before we had our preschool programs begin again this week. Last week's high winds resulted in some downed trees at Simons Park, and our staff spent Friday cleaning up a number of the trees that had fallen, and at least one tree had taken out a disc golf basket. Thankfully, it's an older one that is being replaced, and not one of the new ones. So we were fortunate that we didn't lose brand new disc golf basket, but they'll continue working up there, clearing things out as well. Overlook Park, while we're on the cleanup discussion, as you may recall, we since we vacated the maintenance garage areas and those buildings have been demolished, we had a lot of yard type waste, things that we clean up in the parks, our leaves that we clean up in all the parks and town properties throughout the year used to get put up there. Over time it breaks down, but the stuff that's been there the last year or two, we needed to get all that cleaned up. And there are some other debris, just, when we work on projects around town, sometimes stuff doesn't fit into a dumpster and we collect a pile and we have to get rid of it. So all of that has been in the process of being cleaned up by Crescio Disposal, and they're almost done. There is remaining couple piles up there that have to be moved out, and then there's a large storage container that was moved up there during the building of the new buildings. DPW was looking for space to store some things until their building was up and running, so that's up there. That will be demolished and taken out of there as well, all in preparation for hopefully much anticipated work on the Overlook Park project, hopefully beginning this summer, but that gives us semi-clean slate to work off of. And then, as you may recall, In the spring, we usually put together a list of projects for the Simons Trust, and we share them with the trust, discuss them with the trust, and sometimes they ask us to adjust some things, or, and then, or they just vote and approve our projects. We have a reading of the trust at Maytown meeting and a second one in September, and that was all approved, and we received the check last week. And some of the things on the trust list this year are scholarships, VISCO building, painting, and program special events. So we'd just like to express our gratitude to the trustees for their continued support of the programs and events at Simons Park. So that's it. That's where we're at right now.
Brendan, any questions?
Quick question to the chairwoman. Brendan, how, no, up at the park with the trees, I know we ran into it last time with we tried to get ahead of it if there was some dead trees up there. I know we got issues with, how to take down these big trees because we don't get the funding that we've talked about.
Right.
That we can probably get. So is that something that we can sort of, I know there's some big boys that might have came down.
Yeah, so when Mother Nature takes them down for us, it's, we're able to cut them up. If we get something that's too large for our chainsaws, we would ask someone to come in that's better equipped to handle it. But we have, throughout the year, stuff falls there all the time, and if we
Right.
can clean it up, we do. If it's something we have to leave,
Not
it's
so
a
much
little
the
bigger.
cleaning up part like it, but is there anything dead in there? I know I haven't,
Yes,
so if we're,
that we need to take down.
if somebody's in there, like doing disc golf
Yep,
or walking, and, obviously it was a windy day, but there's still people, it wasn't like a snowstorm or something, but, just for
yes,
security reasons.
and we are working on a plan to get rid of some of that currently, and maybe as part of a training.
Oh, yeah? Oh, good.
So live training, chainsaw training, so,
Awesome.
all right,
All right, thank you.
without letting the cat out of the bag.
Oh, that's good. No,
Yeah,
it's just,
but
I didn't-
it's a perfect spot to do it because we have identified, a number of trees that are, in need of coming down.
Yeah.
So having the training to do it will help us out going forward.
Can you put on like an adult class where people pay for it and get chainsaw safety?
Well, it is an adult class, but it's limited.
Well, the other thing too is we got disc golf, we're doing that over, so I'm sure the course is gonna get played more once that gets completed.
Yep.
So, there'll be more and more people in that part of the park, so, but thank you.
Yep.
That's it, Mrs. Chairman.
That just actually brings up another question, if we're going to be looking at all these trees, obviously, we do have our staff that can do some of the tree removal if it's within our, the capabilities of our chainsaws. We're talking about, when nature might break a fence, what we're going to do about that in the future. But is there a possibility of having like a landscaper almost volunteer their time or have, do anything like that that would be out of, I guess, the realm of what we can do as the maintenance department? Is that something where a landscaper in town might be able to volunteer their time or something?
We probably look for an arborist to come in, really identify, right, what, some of the things we might not see, right? They can look through and see what might need to come down. It's something we've identified through the trust before
Okay.
to work with us on. So there, we have identified some funds through there, and there may be some left. We've done some work in there in prior years. So, if we don't expend that whole amount that's set aside for it, we can go back to, it stays in the account, and we can go back and expend more of it, so.
Gotcha. Cool, thank you. Any other questions for Brendan?
No.
All right, Kelly.
Thank you. So the first item I'm going to chat about is policy and procedures. One of our department goals for 2025 is to develop a comprehensive policy and procedure manual. That's not something we currently have within the department. So the plan is to review current policy that we actually do have and develop some new policy, which is much needed. We've identified a few to start. The town insurance company has asked us to develop some policy on a few items. So the plan is to bring at least 2 to every meeting from now, well, starting in the next meeting in January, until we do have a comprehensive manual, just to kind of go through what we have to be able to provide a comprehensive plan for the department moving forward. If you guys have any feedback or any input or questions, happy to answer them as they come
Yeah,
up.
explain that to me. So the town insurance is asking for our policies to be changed?
Well, so the town insurance has asked to see our policies on certain items, so a concussion policy, for example.
Okay,
We don't have a concussion policy in the department.
okay.
So we have to develop that, and it has to be approved by the commission, and then it would go into a policy manual. So the plan is to develop policy, bring it forward for the commission to review. You have to have 2 readings of it, and then implement that policy so the department has a plan for those types of situations.
Okay, yeah.
Now, is that for staff members, or is that for participants?
Participants.
Participants,
Yeah,
okay.
it's what the town's looking for.
Okay.
Through the chair, the school committee recently finished doing that too. It's a little tedious, but it really does help codify things and, let everyone know where they stand and, clarifies expectations for participants and staff alike. So it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it.
So you want to bring, to the chair, do you want to bring, so a couple things each meeting, and then we'll vote on them, and then put that in, then the next meeting, so you guys it's a moving,
Yes.
a moving
Yep, so we
policy.
have a list of all of the policy we think we need, plus we're kind of looking at the policy that we do have in place now.
Yeah,
And the goal is to bring a minimum of 2. It could be more than that, it could be 3, 4, 5, depending on the progress we've been able to make over the course of the month or a couple weeks or whatever it may be, and bring those forward so that you're not inundated with an entire book of policy. You're just doing a couple every meeting, so that way you kind of can really pay attention to the policy and make corrections or additions where you guys see fit. And then we can vote on it and put it in the policy manual for our staff and/or the community as a whole.
you have a timeline that it has to be completed by?
The goal is to have it done by 2025, the end of 2025.
Okay,
Which could be ambitious, if I'm being 100% transparent with you. But we'll at least get something in writing, in the books for us to have, and to be able to refer to if items come up.
Madam Chair, if I could real quick. So for what I found helpful with the school committee is we benchmarked a lot of the MASC, as the Massachusetts Association of School Committees policies. Is there a recreation affiliation that we could benchmark some of that from to?
Not to my
Lighten the
knowledge.
burden?
Not to my knowledge that I found yet.
Okay. Yeah.
But we have worked with a number of our colleagues in other communities. We have all kinds of policy manuals that they kind of operate under now for their departments. So we are kind of looking at some of those and seeing where some of the policy that we feel is, that we need immediately to kind of get going and go from there.
Is that just offering that as a
Yeah.
possible way to
Yes,
help
right.
streamline the process? It was helpful to benchmark some of the ones that were just, a lot of boilerplate stuff.
Awesome. Okay.
Madam Chair.
The next item is the outdoor facility master plan. So as you know, we have completed our outdoor facility master plan. We've been working with Weston and Sampson to develop a time where they could come in and present to you, the commission, before we release it to the public. We've identified January 27th for that date, so we've been working with them on the presentation. We're working on getting the final document in our hands as we speak, so that should get to you guys in the next couple weeks for you to review prior to the meeting on the 27th, but we are very excited that that's finally coming to fruition for sure. And the last thing, I know Brendan kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, a new year means new professional development opportunities for the department. We're very excited for them. We've been working with a number of departments, both in town and across the state, and we are excited that tomorrow, actually, we have our first training in cooperation with the Burlington Conservation Department. They're coming down to our maintenance garage to talk about stormwater maintenance and how they can how they can maintain the biobasins, rain gardens, stormwater infrastructure that is within our parks and on the school grounds, and just how we can better manage them and maintain them. And then on the 22nd, we are working with the Burlington Board of Health to provide the Stop the Bleed training for our full-time staff as a whole. That is a crisis intervention training. If something should happen and there is a mass casualty event, it talks about what you need to do to be safe and to potentially, help your coworkers, colleagues, people within your area. And then on February 19th, we are working with the UMass Transportation Center, or Bay State Roads as they're also called, to bring welding operations to the maintenance division so that they can learn proper use of welding techniques using some of the equipment that they have in-house. So we're excited for those opportunities. There's a ton more of professional development opportunities online and in person coming up over the next quarter, but those are the three we'd like to highlight tonight.
Thanks. Any questions?
Sounds good, Kelly.
Great, thanks so much. All right, does anyone have any subcommittee reports? You want to talk about, do we have anything to cover for Marshall Simons?
Not a ton to cover from Marshall Simons, other than I do proofread minutes better. We're going to get the 90% budget estimate tomorrow night, so that should be pretty exciting. It'll help nail down a lot of the elements we're planning for, and really sets us up to go out to bid and RFP, keep the project on schedule. So hopefully we're done at the end of summer for next year's school year, beginning in the end of August, beginning of summer, or excuse me, beginning of September. So we'll have that complex reopened for the town to use. So it's getting pretty exciting right now. It's becoming real. We've made a lot of design choices and look forward to moving it forward, and then hopefully getting the MOU draft moving too
Great.
for scheduling the fields.
Any other subcommittee reports?
No, quick question through the chair. Well, you guys were on the subcommittee. What have they changed anything from, like, have you guys designed anything new as far as, or is it just pretty?
Not necessarily made design choices. So we talked about the terraced seating, ensuring we had a couple of rows of ADA compliant seating, making sure the field met what we wanted. So we selected the infill material, the turf material. We have not selected the striping yet, figured out fencing and other items that will be in there. The other big thing that's going on right now is there'll be a wetland remediation. So there's 2,400 square feet of wetland that have to be replicated. The good news is there's 6,000 square feet on site to replicate the 2,400 feet. So we don't anticipate a lot of challenges there. But again, that's one of the big things. And then the geotechnical survey is going on right now for determining where the best site for light footings will be.
Excellent. Brendan?
Yes.
What do you think of the plan as far as the recreation department use of, I mean, I know it's a school.
Yep.
But we're going to be using the field also.
Yeah. I think, and we're working on a MOU for the use of the property, because I think that's important. I think that's what the youth sports are really looking for, right? They were really the ones that got behind this and pushed it, right? And if they don't get on there until 7:30 at night on the three fields, that's not what this whole project was pushed for. It was pushed so that they can be on there earlier at 6 o'clock-ish, right? So that they can start their nights and not have, to wait until 7:30, 8 o'clock to get on. But I think it's been a good working group. I think it's a good mix of, school, youth sports, just residents, and then Parks and Recreation. Looking at choosing product, I think there's been some pretty good discussion on it. The only concern I have is just drainage and how that's going to shake out, because in the history of us maintaining that back area, when you're looking from brush out to the back grass area, the left corner that's closest to brush field has been predominantly a wet area for a long time, where we can't mow there until later in the spring, after you get those initial spring rains and it's dried out. Is even something as light, so to speak, as a mower, a large area mower, gets stuck in there. So figuring out, making sure that drainage works under that section of the field and there's not too much remediation to the drainage or too much drainage work that has to be done. I'm optimistic on the whole project and think it'll be a benefit. Making sure that there are accessible seating and the terrace seating that's going to be on the hillside is super important, not just at the top or just at the bottom, but multiple rows in there. Someone with a mobility issue shouldn't be limited to having the stands at the top or be right down on the bottom behind where players could be standing or whatever. They should have, the ability to watch from different levels. But I think done a good job taking those things into consideration. And then lights, that's, I think, our next big one, right, is trying to figure out where the light poles will be stationed. And we've all seen what new field lighting and court lighting is about. The spill-off is very minimal. It's very contained into the area that it's directed at. So I think we'll see any issues there. But overall, good project, and I think it will benefit the youth sports.
Are now the handicap accessible from the main parking lot? Is that coming? Now, I know that was an
It's
issue.
actually from the gym, if you're looking at, it's the Peach Orchard side coming in behind the school.
Yeah.
There'll be geez, I'm blanking here. It's 2 or 3 ADA accessible parking spaces, which leads right to the ramp down to the field area. So it is the quickest way to get, folks that need that mobility access, not only students, but town members down to the field, is basically what the engineering firm came up with. And based on the grade of the hill, it presents the least amount of challenges for making it the appropriate slope and width.
So, yeah, so it'll utilize that back path. Well, it won't utilize, it'll recreate that back path that goes to the neighborhood behind, I forget which street it is back there, that's behind the middle school. So it'll go that way and then come back at the field. So if a student needed to access the new field area, there is an elevator in the school that comes down that will bring them down behind or in front of the gym. There's an elevator there in the lobby, off the lobby there. It'll bring them down to that level. They'll be able to go out the door and be right at those accessible parking spots there, and then continue down the path to the field.
Okay. Yeah, that's a biggie, obviously, therapeutic stuff that we can do in town with them and stuff, so I just want to make sure that, if we're using that side of the field, that everything's, I know it's a big thing for me, so I'm glad you guys are on top of it.
We're absolutely trying to squeeze every dollar out of it we can, and
Right.
cutting.
It's very important.
And there will be access from the current parking lot over off of Locust Street there. That will get you all the way to the back.
Wasn't that an issue as far as,
Yeah, so there'll be a path from.
there is a path that,
Bottom
like a
parking lot.
nice,
Yep, and there'll be a path from the bottom parking lot that, off Locust Street, that goes directly in, and it'll facilitate an ambulance moving in there, across the track, and then down to the other fields too. So it'll be wide enough to accommodate an ambulance
Excellent.
from there. So, and I believe it was a paved path that goes along the west side of the.
goes behind?
Yep.
Not
Yep.
the hillside, the other side.
Yep, it goes
Correct.
on the west side there, closer to
Where
Locust
the
Street.
storage lockers are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so
Yep,
those
are
will
gonna
have
get
to be
actually
moved.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ally?
Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, any new business?
Just one item. I meant to add it to my report, but the town is doing the Civic Expo again this year, which will be January 15th, so a week from Wednesday. If anyone would like to, if any of you would like to, any commissioners would like to come be at our booth, just let me know. It's 5 to 7. It's going to be here at the high school. If you do want to come and you want to stagger, we can work that out as well.
What night is that?
Wednesday, January 15th.
I'll be there for the fields and can also represent as long as you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'll be in Norway, so I will not be
Yeah.
able to attend.
No, nice.
Yeah, but I will be there, and Megan and I can bounce back and forth between school committee and
Okay.
fields and.
I'll be
everything.
there, I'll probably, yeah.
Okay.
5 to 7.
5 to
Here?
7, yep. Yes, up at the cafeteria.
It wasn't there last year, was it?
No, it was in the Murray Kelly room,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
so spread it out a
Back to,
little.
it was a well-attended event last year.
Yeah, it was good, it was good.
I'm excited I can attend this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, Brendan. It
Yep.
was in the back of my head and I forgot. Okay, old business.
All right. We've been discussing the budget a little bit, our last couple meetings. So we still have not received official budget guidelines for FY '26. Hope to receive them soon. But currently, we are at a 3% increase. This does not include any negotiated increases, as contracts have not been negotiated for FY '26. For our department, that is the BMEA Employees Union, covers 15 of the 17 department employees, and then Kelly and I are not in a union. We are under the town's administrative and professionals agreement. It's not a union. It's just an agreement covers department heads, assistant department heads, positions of that nature. So that has not been negotiated yet for FY '26. We do have a meeting with administration to discuss our FY '26 budget, but we want to present the budget here for review with the commission tonight. The budget, as I mentioned, does not include any negotiated increases, but there are increases in full-time salaries per the current contract and what they will go to in their next step. So if there's any kind of cost of living increase or anything like that, that's not been calculated yet. If it's not calculated, it won't be calculated, or it won't be finalized until after our budgets have been approved and everything, and it will be funded through negotiated settlements at town meeting. They'll approve an amount and put it into our budget. So we do have some increases in our part-time and full-time lines, and that also affects our overtime as well, because we have new rates that we're estimating and that they'll be paid. So we did have to increase our overtime as well to cover those. And as we find during the year, we're covering more with our overtime. Events that take place in town, when there are storms outside of the winter time, well, even during snow removal, sometimes we get sent home, but we haven't done all our parks, and we try to work on them during the day, but people use the parks, so finding a time either after hours or early morning, coming in at like 4 a.m. and doing so. Sometimes we have to spend out of our own budget for some snow removal like that. But then also, like the winds we had last week, if we had to come in on a weekend because something was down. So we need to be able to cover those. Plus all the events that happen on the Common. They apply with the select board to have an event on the Common, and then they ask for trash coverage, or they ask for someone to make sure the electricity's on. Well, that's our department, and there's no funds put together for that, so we have to fund it out of our overtime. And then we have scheduled overtime per the contract negotiated years ago for the center of town. So from April through November, work on the center of town is done on overtime, and scheduled shifts each week. Staying away from Wednesdays when they work late, but it's maintaining the grounds, doing plantings, edging the planting beds, adding mulch, leaf, cleanup of debris and things like that, trimming of branches and shrubs around the buildings, and those are the buildings from the fire department up to the police department, including the library. So there was an increase in overtime as well. And then our occupancy, we did get from the budget analyst to increase our occupancy by 1% to accommodate electrical and gas and those kind of increases. That was what they calculated this year for an increase. And then we do have an increase in contracted services. And what that is our software costs. Currently, we're paying 70% of, or more of some of our software. So our Bamboo HR software, which is our onboarding software, our time sheet, time tracking software for all of our seasonal employees, part-time employees. And then it's really we looked into it a few years ago, and I think Kelly found it, and it's a great software because we can put all the documents in there, and they can sign them and upload the documents, and you can sort, by different categories, so we see who needs what certifications, whose, driver's license is up, has expired, and we need the new one, things like that. And then also our registration software, Vermont Systems. So right now, we've figured that we will be paying 65% of those costs, and we're asking the town to fund 35% of those software costs. We'd really like it to be, 50-50 this year and 75-25 next year, but, we're inching towards that. So that was the increase in contracted services. So those were our increases in our budget. Again, this is our budget guidelines without being officially handed out to us. They said in the ballpark of 3.5% to 4.5%. We'll find out more when we sit down with the budget analysts and the administrative team to discuss our budget next Wednesday. We do not anticipate any cuts. We would love an increase. It's very difficult for us, our department. We are service-oriented, right? So the cost to provide those services does go up, and trying to stay with the material cost increases can be, and stay within the guidelines can be very difficult, or is very difficult. Our staff does a nice job of identifying areas that they can struggle through for another year, and make do with what we have. But we are trying to meet the need of the public at the same time. So if there's any questions on any sections of the budget, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Through the chair, Madam Chair. How is occupancy, and is that a realistic? I know they tell you 1%, but that can't be realistic.
Well, so, the town is, for their energy costs, their gas and their electric, more so their gas, they are, get into a pool where they, we're hopefully getting a better rate than a homeowner, because they're buying at a larger rate, right? They're buying for all towns, the gas supply and stuff. But the increase is based on their projections as well, the projections for increase in oil costs or gas costs for a year. And they've been pretty good. We haven't run through that budget in the last few years, so they do a good job estimating. When I saw the 1%, I was like, ooh, 1%, but...
And what about our supplies, our contracted services? We didn't go up on any of them, a little bit, but,
well,
I mean...
so in order to stay within the guidelines...
Right, but, if we vote on this budget, which you did a great job, I'm sure you and Kelly and your team fine-tuned it, but I mean, and then we don't even know what the contracted services for our workers are, but, so everything's going to stay the same? No?
We've
everything's
level
line
funded our expense accounts except for that contracted services for the software.
Okay. good luck. That's tough.
Well, you know, we are creative, and we are thankful for the revolving account at times. Well, most of the year, we're very thankful for it because, you know, we are able to absorb some costs in there that, you know, help offset those increases that we want to make.
Right. No, looks good to me. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Just a couple, so through the chair. So I'm kind of noticing on the top line there, or the top page, overtime is a 9.12% change, right, year over year. For the past, 3 years, you're trending up or level setting, I guess, kind of simple math for me with what we're expending, it looks like there's basically a way to advocate for a full-time employee or 2 part-time employees to reduce the number of overtime hours. But I don't know if that necessarily translates into the way you're visioning the budget. Again, this is just a raw look at the numbers, and I don't know how the outlay goes for you, so I just would be one question there. And then, are we going to start to populate line items for, like Kelly briefed the Fields Master Plan, to start pushing those out year over year and, have that spend plan, similar to what we're doing over on school committee, to project out some of those costs so we can align it with Ways and Means and other departments?
We've had some conversations in how we're going to fund those projects, and I think we've identified, if we're successful with the athletic field improvement, we can do some through there. We can do some of the smaller items that aren't necessarily athletic fields through, planned budget expenses, going year to year. The larger ones, the playgrounds, we're not talking about a $70,000 playground anymore. A small playground, Wildmere, is $180,000, right? So those are going to have to be warrant articles, and I believe we were able to grab it to incorporate it into our 10-year plan now. So veterans, Rahanis, Simons, even Wildwood, right? And in another 10 years, we're projecting that, because right now it's 12 years, 13 years? 10 years, 10 years. It was 2013, 14 when it was completed. So we're looking, we have projected those in there. So, but other items like, some, I'm trying to think of what else out there, backstops and things like those. We've been able to get a bunch of those done with the athletic field warrant article that we were fortunate to get. So hopefully that if they approve that again this year, we'll be able to do that many more, right? And then they'll develop onto the list and replacing those 15 to 20, every 15 to 20 years if needed. Hopefully we get 20 years out of them and we can replace them at that point. But I think we've identified those items and how we could fund them.
Yeah, and then I guess just the other thing, going back to that overtime discussion, if there is, advocacy that we could help you guys with for that full-time employee or, a part-time employee or two, because again, with the 100 or so thousand outlay, it looks like, it appears on the surface that there's, trade space there for advocating for that, but again, I don't know the details of it like you do.
And some of that overtime was negotiated overtime into the contract.
Gotcha.
I can give you a ballpark number of hours. We're looking at, 12 hours a week, so 3 people for 9 weeks in the spring. 2 people a week for 13 weeks in the summer. So 8 hours, which is 2 people, 2 4-hour shifts, and then another 12 hours for 13 weeks in the fall. So we're talking, 35 weeks where we have 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah, so
a
it doesn't really add up to the 2080 for a full-time position, I get what you're saying.
Correct.
Makes sense.
So the idea was that they were, I believe, from what I understand, is that was negotiated in so they could get to the work in those buildings when people weren't occupying them, going in and out, and they can actually do. So
Yeah, there's not enough full-time work to justify it for all the way through, because you're the different times a year it happens. That makes sense. No, totally get it.
That's more on the weekend, 2 on the weekends. each
Oh,
day.
yes, throughout, so then, starting in May through October, we have, earlier in the season and late in the season, we do try to work 2 4-hour shifts, a 4-hour on Saturday, 4-hour on Sunday, to get trash and bathrooms. In the heart of the season, we have 2 8-hour shifts, full-time guys, but then, full-time staff, but then we have seasonal staff assist them when they're on. So there's a full-time and a seasonal staff on from late May, Memorial Day through Labor Day, when they're on. So, and that's checking the pool, because you have to check the chemicals, I think 4 times throughout the day, or 3 times throughout the day, emptying trash, cleaning bathrooms, those type of things, restocking paper towels, toilet paper, as they're cleaning the bathrooms. And then if there's a special project, something that couldn't complete during the week and they can finish it on a weekend,
Sure.
they catch up.
Again, my question wasn't to sharpshoot.
Yeah,
It's my
no, but it's good because I think we are 7 days a week, really year-round.
People use facilities 7 days a week, so you got to have coverage, right? So
Correct.
it makes sense. Yeah.
Correct. So in the outdoor stuff is probably 9 months out of the year. The indoor is all 12 months, so.
Any other questions? Okay. Now, I think we all agreed that we would take some time, digest this, see if there are any more questions next week, and we can vote on it next week, and you might have more information as well from the town,
Yes.
so. Okay. Okay. Any other old business?
I don't have any.
Okay. Any need for an executive session?
Not at this meeting.
Okay. All right, we already have our next meeting scheduled for Monday, January 27th.
Correct.
Okay. I don't think we need to go further out then. We'll just
Yes.
do that. Okay. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.